attendance yet from the GPAC. I anticipate, and we probably have a lot of users that are just doing this for the first time, so I know it can be challenging to log on. So hopefully we don't have any technical issues, but I would just like to open up the meeting and welcome everybody to, I think it's GPAC meeting number 13, which is incredible. And also I would like to just thank the GPAC members for being able to participate, and also for your long-standing commitment to working on this general plan update. I don't know if anybody thought that they were signing themselves up for essentially 4 years of heavy lifting with a lot of gaps in between, but I just wanted to thank you for your time and your passion, and also your great comments throughout this process. We've really enjoyed working with you on this, and we are almost there. We're in the final stretch of the general plan update. Tonight we're going to be producing the general plan draft for you, talking about any comments that you may have as we review these final elements. And Ben has a presentation for you that we'll jump into in just a second, but we want to make sure that we leave a significant amount of time for the GPAC members to ask any questions that you may have, clarify, and let us know of any comments. And then we'll also talk about the schedule for the rest of 2020, which hopefully winds up being a city council hearing where we can move towards adoption of the general plan and the EIR, which is all hopefully going to be happening in December, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I will turn the meeting over to Ben to get started. And again, if you have any questions, in order to keep things moving, I would encourage you to, if you look on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, actually in the middle, there's a chat function. So you can, if you want to click on that, you can always put a question out to all the membership, or you can reach out to any individual if you have a question. We'll make sure that we get to all of those, but just in case you have questions that arise throughout the presentation, you can put them there. We'll make sure that we go through them. And then we'll also have time just for any questions you may have throughout the process. But I will turn it over to Ben. And again, just thank you for your time and your efforts in moving this process through. We're really excited to be able to bring this home.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jessica. So it's good to see everybody. It's been a little while. Lots happened. Steve, I like the COVID beard. I'm trying to keep pace with you there, big guy. So good work. So yeah, it's been a little over 1.5 years since we all got together. We have been very busy in the background. And as Jessica mentioned, we greatly appreciate your patience. But I'm feeling really excited about where we are this evening. So hopefully everybody received a copy of the draft general plan. That's the fruits of your labor. So it's comprehensive, cover to cover, addressing all the topics required by state law, and hopefully reflecting the values and priorities and goals and objectives of the Milpitas community. So as Jessica mentioned, this is our opportunity to go through the document. We really want to focus on big picture items. It's 270 pages long, so we're not intending to flip through it page by page this evening. But this is our opportunity to make sure that you're comfortable with the content. We didn't have anything significant that was missing. And our goal is to get through this meeting with a document that's endorsed by this group so we can move on to the city council. So what I'm going to do now is walk you through a brief PowerPoint. It won't be too terribly long. And so let's see here. Everybody should be seeing my PowerPoint screen now. Are we good?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. So I won't belabor this, but I just want to kind of walk us through this. So this is our 13th official meeting together. And our overarching purpose for tonight is to receive final GPAC comments on the draft general plan. So it's a pretty straightforward objective for today's meeting. So the game plan for this evening, I'm going to just go do a quick overview of the process on how we got here. So as you know, we've been at this for 4 years or so. So we did not just stroll into town, read a general plan, and here we are. There's been a lot of steps and stages that have got us to this point. I'm going to walk you through a quick overview of what's in the draft general plan. And then our primary objective tonight is to have a discussion amongst the GPAC members and provide your comments and input on the draft that you received about a month ago. We'll then have an opportunity for public comment, and following public comment, we'll talk about next steps in the process in terms of getting this thing out for a formal public review period and ultimately getting it to the city council for their adoption. So diving right in. As the group is aware, we've had a number of milestone stages and throughout this process. So we kicked this off with a series of 3 visioning workshops, and then we prepared a community workshop summary report back in March of 2017 that summarized all the input and feedback we got from those visioning workshops. We then prepared our existing conditions report, which all of you received as a resource for work throughout this general plan. It's a very detailed document that talks about our starting point. We have an existing conditions summary magazine. So that was the existing conditions report's about yay thick. It's got 400 some odd pages. It's a real doozy to try and read cover to cover. So we synthesized that down into a very graphic heavy magazine type document with a lot of highlights on some of the key findings. During our meetings together with the GPAC, we had a number of issues and opportunities memos. So you'll remember we had tech memos on economic conditions. Thank you very much. And so we had a number of issues and opportunities memos as we were working our way through our various GPAC meetings. We then prepared the land use alternatives report, and I hope everybody's still remembering and familiar with that document. It talked about different opportunity areas, opportunities to change the land use map, and what some of the economic, traffic, growth, and fiscal implications of those changes were. We then worked over a course of 3 meetings with the City Council to take the feedback that the GPAC gave us from the land use alternatives report and develop the council's preferred land use map. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on a subsequent slide. We developed policy sets throughout our time together as the GPAC. So you'll recall we would discuss a topic. We would then go back and draft a series of goals, policies, and action items that were reflective of the GPAC's direction and input, bring those policy sets back to the GPAC for refinement and finalization. And those ultimately made up the draft general plan, which we completed last month and distributed to this group. And then one of the other key steps is our CEQA process, the California Environmental Quality Act. So we're required to prepare a draft EIR as part of this general plan. That effort is significantly underway, and we'll talk a little bit more about that on the schedule slide coming up. So community outreach and making sure we're reflecting the priorities and values of the community has been a key cornerstone of our work effort. So some of the key aspects of this have included 12 GPAC meetings. This is our 13th. We've met with the City Council a total of 6 times so far throughout this process. We kicked this off with a series of 3 public visioning workshops back in late 2016, and I know a lot of the GPAC members were present at those. We had an online survey back in late 2016. We've published a couple of project newsletters that provide information to the community about how to get involved and what the general plan means and why we're preparing this. And then one of our key outreach resources has been the general plan website. So hopefully everybody's familiar with milpitas.generalplan.org. We've got all of our draft documents, the milestone reports I was referencing, information from key meetings, and there's also a contact us link through the website. And we've gotten a number of people who've communicated with us through the general plan website, and they've been added to our email distribution list. So we've had a number of opportunities for public participation and outreach, and there will be several more opportunities before the general plan is ultimately adopted by the council. So the actual general plan itself. So the draft that was provided to you last month incorporates all of the policy sets that this group developed, reviewed, and commented on. It also includes the City Council's preferred land use map. And we've developed it to meet all of the applicable requirements of state planning law. So you'll recall I've told you a number of times throughout the process, you tell us where Milpitas wants to be, we'll craft a plan to get you there, and along the way, we'll make sure we're checking all the boxes for state legal compliance in terms of general plan requirements. So we have absolutely drafted the general plan to be in compliance with all applicable state laws and requirements as they relate to the city of Milpitas. So in terms of the general plan and what's in it, probably a familiar slide to my GPAC members. We have our 7 mandated, state mandated elements. These include land use, circulation, conservation, which we've also combined with sustainability, safety, noise, open space, and we've also included parks and recreation in our open space element. And the state also requires that you have a certified and adopted housing element, but you already have one that's currently in compliance with state law and is good for another couple of years. So an update to the housing element was not part of this work plan. And then the state allows that the city include any number of optional elements that are locally relevant to the jurisdiction. So for your general plan, we've included community design, economic development, utilities and services, health and wellness, and also implementation. And if you've had a chance to look through the implementation chapter, you'll notice it's a compilation and a matrix of all of the action items throughout the various elements of the general plan. It identifies the staff or department responsible for implementation and also the general time frame for implementation. So as you read through this general plan, there are literally hundreds of actions and steps that the city needs to carry out in order to fully implement this general plan. And the implementation element provides a roadmap for how that will be accomplished over the next several years. Because as you'll recall, this is a 20-year planning document. And as excellent and exceptional as your professional planning staff is in Milpitas, they will not be able to implement all of this in the first year following adoption. So we've laid out a realistic schedule for how these various programs will be implemented over time. So in addition to the various elements that I just showed you on the previous slide, the land use map is obviously a key component of the general plan itself. And as the GPAC is aware, this was developed through a number of steps and stages. And so that involved mapping activities during our first initial kickoff visioning workshops. We got a lot of input from staff on their various observations, parcels that were in non-compliance or emerging issues that needed to be addressed. Our professional consulting team, our economists, our traffic consultants, and your professional planners on the team made some various recommendations that was based on what we heard from the community and also some best practices in other cities that we think would be useful for Milpitas in order to achieve some of its stated objectives. And along those lines, we had our market analysis with a number of key findings that will help Milpitas be more regionally competitive in terms of attracting high-wage jobs and employment opportunities. As the GPAC is aware, we had a number of meetings where we discussed land use. Some were focused on community design and some were focused very specifically on the land use map in our review of the land use alternatives report. So the GPAC was very instrumental in crafting the 14 and identifying the 14 opportunity areas analyzed in the land use alternatives report and then provided feedback on those, which we then took to the city council. And so over the course of 3 very dedicated land use study sessions with the city council, we were able to get to a spot in October of last year where the council was fully supportive of the draft land use map. They provided some very minor revisions to the version that the GPAC had sent forward, but the draft land use map that's in the general plan in front of you today is substantially similar to what the GPAC sent forward to the city council. There were only very minor tweaks and revisions made by the council. And during that October 2019 meeting, the council did express unanimous support for the land use map. So they didn't take official action, but they made it very clear that the map that we had developed collectively as a group had their full support, and that's what should be included in the general plan and have the rest of the policies built around that land use map. So in crafting the general plan and the land use map specifically, there are a number of big picture goals that we've had in mind from the outset of this. So some of those priorities for this general plan was protecting the existing residential neighborhoods throughout Milpitas, providing opportunities to spur job growth and economic development by making the city more competitive in attracting large-scale employers, technology industry, jobs, and just generally making the city more regionally competitive within the larger Silicon Valley. Opportunities to revitalize existing neighborhood commercial centers by allowing for some limited housing and some expanded retail and office potential to try and revitalize some of your aging shopping centers in your various neighborhoods. Finding ways to complement and support the recent and the currently ongoing planning and development efforts in some of the key portions of the city. So your downtown, Main Street, what was formerly the Transit Area Specific Plan, which is now known as the Metro Area Specific Plan, which is being updated right now, and also the Gateway Main Street Specific Plan area. Looking for opportunities to reduce existing and future land use conflicts by transitioning select areas from industrial manufacturing to mixed use residential. Looking for opportunities to optimize the mix of land use near your transit centers and specifically near your new BART station. And how to protect and strengthen the viability of the city's industrial lands. You guys are very unique in that you've got a large geographic industrial core in the center of the city, provides a tremendous number of jobs. And as the economic and market conditions have changed over time, how do we keep this area relevant, vibrant, and still providing a good job and tax base for the city of Milpitas? So those were a number of the big picture goals and priorities that we kept in mind in drafting both the land use map and the general plan as a whole. So hopefully this was a nice refresher. I know it's been a little while since this whole group was together. So that concludes the formal PowerPoint presentation of this. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can all see each other a little bit better. And our goal at this point is to really open it up to our GPAC members to talk about your thoughts and comments and observations on the draft general plan. Keeping in mind, this is a 270-page document, and there are hundreds and hundreds of policies and actions within it. So it is not our intent to flip through it collectively page by page. That's not what we're planning to do. But what we would like to do is go through generally element by element and make sure that there are no key concerns. So I'm asking a couple of fundamental questions. In your review of the draft general plan, is there something in the plan that you fundamentally disagree with and that needs to be changed? And also in your review of the draft general plan, is there something that was critical to you or the community that you feel is omitted and not properly addressed that we need to add in order to fix it? So again, 270 pages, hundreds of policies. We can't go through each page, but I'd like to go through kind of topic by topic and turn it over to the group for a discussion. So if there are any questions about what I just presented, now's a great time. Otherwise, I'm going to look to this group and just have good Zoom protocol, unmute yourselves when you're ready to talk, and let's dive into this thing. So if there are any general comments, I'll take those now. Otherwise, we can start with the land use element. And I know Jessica's ready to say something for us real quick.
Sorry, just really briefly, I wanted to jump in and just say, I know there are a number of GPAC members that are here. You may have a lot of comments that you'd like to make. I would just ask that since we have a number of you and it's a little difficult to manage, we can do a couple of things. First, I would ask that we try to keep your initial comments maybe to one of those elements, and then we can move on and let another member speak. The other is that if everybody can go to, I believe it's, if you click on participants on that little link down there, there's a raise hand button that's down on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. If you open that up, if you raise your hand, then we can see you. And then that way, Ben can actually take a look at that and go to the next person so that we're not interrupting people and everybody has a chance to say what they need to say. So I know it's so awkward to not be able to see you in person and to be able to respond to visual cues, but if that can work, let's give that a shot.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jessica. All right. Looks like Allison is using our instructions. I see the raised hand over there in the right-hand column. So Allison, let's go ahead and kick this off.
Hi, thank you. Nice to see you again. So I was looking over the land use plan, and I am still quite concerned about the designation of the neighborhood of Sunny Hills Apartments being designated as HDR, high density residential, which would allow 16 to 30 units per gross acre. My understanding is that that area has over 12.5 acres, which would mean that if someone wanted to go in there and redevelop it, they could put in a building or series of buildings with 203 to 380 units. Currently, there's only 100 and believe it's 180. It's around that number. And current plan is, the proposal is to add, another 44, something like that. But we're talking about a much, much larger development there that would be possible under this plan. And I can't let that slip by. As president of the Sunny Hills Neighborhood Association, I know the people behind it in the traditional tract homes would not appreciate that. And the folks who are currently housed there, predominantly low income, very low income, would have nowhere else to go if that was redeveloped in that way. So that's a huge concern that I have. The other question I had, was about kind of closer to where I live, which is off Jacqueline and Hillview. And I know that my neighbors have a lot of questions about the lot that the gym used to be on behind the Shell station, which on the land use plan is designated as neighborhood commercial, which I think it's going to be okay. I think that's what they would like to see there. So I just wanted to say that I like that, and I'm not. I'm glad to see that it's not a high density mixed use, which would probably allow the hotel that the neighborhood was up in arms about a couple months ago. So.
Fantastic. A couple of thoughts and responses there. So obviously the Sunny Hills neighborhood was something we discussed extensively when we were going over the land use alternatives report. And it's also something that the council discussed quite a bit when they were doing their review of the land use map. What we ended up doing through the land use map is we really shrunk the area of study around Sunny Hills, and we really just focused it on the commercial center itself. So the areas that are currently occupied with multifamily housing, some of that's affordable housing, there's no change on your land use map. So that's currently designated as high density residential on the city's existing land use map, and we've left it as such. So the only change we have made was to the actual Sunny Hills Commercial Center, which used to be a combination of mixed use and retail subcenter. And we've consolidated that into the neighborhood commercial mixed use. So you had a number of disparate hodgepodge of commercial designations throughout the city, and we've really tried to consolidate those into a more streamlined and efficient, smaller number of commercial designations. And so I do want to emphasize that the apartments, the Sunny Hills apartments and the areas surrounding the commercial center, there's no change on your land use map with respect to those. And the council did discuss this at length during their review of the land use map, and they were comfortable with where it landed. But one thing I want to very much assure the group is that we are taking, William's on the phone here, he's sitting across from me in the office, you can't see him. But William and I are both here. We're taking detailed notes on this meeting, and all of the feedback from this GPAC meeting is going to be put into a staff report, which we'll pass on to the council. And so as they make the final decisions on the land use map, we're going to make sure that they're keenly aware of all of the issues and concerns that you've raised this evening. So thank you for that. Okay, Jessica, I see your hand up. You're playing ball too. Good.
I'm trying to play ball. It's so hard for me to not want to jump in. I also just wanted to, for the purposes of clarifying again to all of the members, and this also pertains to Allison's observation about the area, Jacqueline and I-680. What we're doing, and when we talk about land use, this does not pertain to zoning. It doesn't pertain to those development standards, height, setbacks, density, any of those issues. And so I just want to let everybody know we will be addressing those issues when we do a subsequent zoning code update. So what we're looking at right now are just those land uses. We will get into the nitty-gritty about what types of uses are going to be allowed there and what any of the development standards will be in our subsequent document that is really about handling those regulations. So this is, again, and I know you guys are all very familiar with this, for the benefit of anybody that's listening as well, the general plan is a very high level document. It's a vision, and these are goals for the next 20 years. These are not zoning designations or any specific development standards. So just to clarify in case anybody has any questions about that.
All right, fantastic, thank you. All right, were there any other GPAC members wishing to talk about land use, talk about the land use elements, other big picture items or concerns? And for those of you that are on video screen, yeah, Steve, the good old fashioned hand wave works well. So Steve, go ahead.
When in doubt, go back to the old ways. Yeah, it's been brought to my attention. I'm very interested, of course, in the parks and maintaining our parks. And I think that that's an important, and recreation, but I think that the parks are a really important facet of our community life. But it's been brought to my attention that the city council is interested in taking one of our parks and turning it into a performance amphitheater. Even though we have Measure K, which was passed, that says that something cannot be rezoned once it's been made a park without a vote of the people. Are we going to be able to do something to protect our other parks in this plan?
Well, it's a great question. So what we have in the general plan land use map, we use the term public facilities to cover the majority of the parks. So some of your parks are designated permanent open space, and some are designated public facilities. In general, and I'll be very candid, I'm not up to date or up to speed with the specifics of or the nuances of what you're specifically referring to. But performance amphitheaters tend to be in line with acceptable parks uses. And so the general plan itself is probably not the right vehicle to get into the nuance in terms of what facilities are most appropriate on specific park sites within Milpitas. But I will say that the city is in the process right now of preparing an update to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And that document is going to provide the specifics on the types of facilities at each of the city's parklands, what's appropriate for each of those city parks, and how they'll be used in the future. And so my recommendation would be to utilize that process of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update to try and provide your input and influence in terms of what you consider to be appropriate uses or inappropriate uses for various parks within the city.
Okay, because when I was looking through, I have not read the 270-page document. I'll be very honest with you, but I did focus on the things that that had the most interest for me, and of course, the parks was one. And I wanted to make sure that we had our parks well established in a way that would protect the public. So that's why I asked the question.
Absolutely. And the general plan has come at parks through a number of angles. So we've taken the open space element, we've expanded it to also include parks and recreation. The land use map identifies where those parks are and has land use designations that would prohibit other urbanized type developments. So you won't be able to put commercial uses on them or residential uses. They very much protect those parcels for parks development. And then we have a number of goals and policies that really stake out the city's position in terms of prioritizing parks as a key community asset, utilizing community input for future parks planning, and then more specifically to update the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which we've included as an action item in the general plan. And fortunately, the city's out in front of this and they've already undertaken that process. So that's underway right now. And so in terms of your specific concerns, if you do or don't support a performance amphitheater at a given park site, the Parks and Rec Master Plan is the more specific document where those park by park uses are going to be specified and laid out. And I'd suggest and encourage that you jump in and participate in that master plan update.
Okay, I'll do that. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Ben, can I just jump in really briefly?
Of course.
Sorry. I also just want to encourage you, Steve, first to note the site that you're talking about and that area of interest is also located within the Midtown specific plan. And we are in the process where we're going to be updating that plan. We're going to be relaunching that process in 2021. That is also another opportunity for us to be talking specifically about those uses. But in no way does our process, does the general plan update, any of these discussions supersede the legislation that's already out there. The public will still have the opportunity to vote if that park status is going to change. So I just want to let you know that we want to be very transparent about any of those discussions and also the planning process as we undergo that. So in addition to getting involved in the Parks, Trails, and Open Space Master Plan, which is a great place to do that, we will also have additional opportunities when we update the Midtown Plan, which we're calling the Main Street Gateway Plan. You'll be seeing that coming up in 2021.
Excellent. And Ned, I saw your hand briefly. Did you have something to say, or did Jessica hit the points you were looking for?
Yeah, just one other point also for Steve and others who might be interested in this. It's very interesting to me to draw a comparison between our current general plan, which was adopted in 1994, is quite outdated, and our new one. And with regard to parks as well as other issues, one of the wonderful things I see about our new general plan is that it is so much larger and has so much more detail in the policies as well as the goals and then the actions as well. So it gives us a lot more ammunition, if you will, and maybe that's not a good term to use. It gives us a lot more detail when we are looking at projects or looking at decisions that are to be made by the Planning Commission or the council over the next 20 years. The general plan, this new general plan gives us much more than what we currently have. So that's one of the great benefits of this new document.
I agree. Thank you. All right, Oscar, I see you clicked your raise hand button.
Yes, thank you. Just a general statement. I have seen several commercial mix commercial developments that are not new, but they have been in the area for many years, and some of them are closing, some of them are not 100% occupancy. And I remember at some point we were discussing how we can promote or encourage the remodeling or renovation of those residential commercial type of stores that has been small around the several areas of the district. So is anything else that because of this current situation we should consider to promote the redevelopment or remodernization or changing the status on those commercial sections?
That's an excellent question. So one of the most effective tools that we have that we discussed during the land use alternatives report for revitalizing some of those aging centers is to provide them with a little bit more flexibility and development potential. So some of the ones that were suffering the most, you'll notice that, or you'll recall that we developed the new land use designation of neighborhood commercial mixed use. So this allowed for increased floor area ratios. So for people who wanted to come in and do some investment and revitalize their properties, they have potential to have larger square footage within their property site. And it also allows for the introduction of a limited amount of multifamily housing in conjunction with commercial redevelopment. So that was one of the carrots we were using as a tool to try and provide some economic incentives for folks to potentially do some additional reinvestment. The city has also gotten very active in its economic development department in terms of doing outreach to the local business community, coming up with different grant and facade improvement programs, and just looking in general for other tools that might be effective at helping property owners. So we're at a very interesting time right now. We obviously started this general plan pre-pandemic. As a land use planner working all over the state of California, I get this question on almost a daily basis. Do we need to change our land use patterns in response to what's going on? And the most direct answer I'm giving cities right now is it's simply too early to tell. So for the most part, we're encouraging cities to generally map out your community the way you see fit. Don't get overly caught up in what the potential long-term implications may be in terms of the pandemic. We're worried about loss of sales tax revenue. We're wondering if retail is ever going to recover to the level it was pre-pandemic. We already had the Amazon influence and the online retail influence happening ahead of time. But in terms of addressing your specific concern, I think we've put a number of good tools in place in this general plan to really target that, because that's something that you and the rest of the GPAC members have been very usefully vocal about since the beginning. We've got some commercial centers that are in need of rehabilitation. They're suitable to be commercial. They ought to continue to be commercial, but not necessarily in the form that they're in now. And so we think we've put a pretty good toolkit together in the general plan to give them as much of a leg up as possible through flexibility through the development process, additional opportunities for density and diversification, and things of that nature. So Ned, did I see your hand up on the chat bar, or was that a holdover?
It was a holdover, but I do have a question really quickly. It's more of a housekeeping item. So I heard from the IT department that's monitoring the meeting. We need to identify the two people who are calling in by phone. There are two 408 numbers. The first one is 408-230-3618. Can you unmute yourself and identify? Oh, that's Victor San Vicente, it looks like. And then how about the other one is 408-469-2368. Are you able to identify yourself? No, again, if you're calling in from 408-469-2368, can you unmute yourself and identify yourself? Otherwise, according to protocol, we have to put them off the call so that we don't have any Zoom bombing or other issues with the call. All right, Rochelle, I think you have the number. So the 3618 number is a legitimate member of the GPAC. There we go. All right, no problem. I think that was the only thing that they had. And then I also, really quickly, I know I'm late at doing this. I apologize for being a few minutes. I was on a phone call with Planning Director Ned Thomas. And in case there are any questions, we also have our Engineering Director, Steve Erickson, and our Recreation Services Director, Renee Lawrenson, on the call, as well as our CIP, our Capital Improvement Projects Manager, or excuse me, Capital Improvement Plan Manager, Michael Silvera. So just a few of the other staff members involved tonight.
And Ben, this is Jessica. If it's possible, I'd like to take a second to address Oscar's comments, just very briefly. Oscar, I also wanted to let you know that we, and I know there's a lot of material to read, and we didn't expect everybody to have gotten through all of it now. You have plenty of time to continue to review it and provide comments to us. This is not the last time that we expect to hear from you. But with respect to some of the concerns about economic development and commercial development in the city, we've worked very closely with our economic development department, and they've created we have that economic development element that's in the plan. Please take a look at that, and then also just note that our economic development director, Alex Andrade, has created a strategy that's on their website. So if you go to the city's webpage and click on economic development, you'll be able to see that and download it. It was just recently adopted by our city council. We are obviously deeply concerned about the state of our businesses right now due to the pandemic. And there are a number of things that we are trying to do to lend assistance and provide support to our small businesses, our large businesses, everybody who's struggling through this right now. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. I'm happy to connect you offline. But I definitely agree with Ben's comments that we have to keep a long view, especially with respect to things like this that come up. They're unfortunate, they're tragic, and they're having a huge impact on our economy. And I hope they will pass. But if you have any more questions, please let me know.
And if I can just add anecdotally, one of the logistics of being a consultant that works in cities throughout California is I'm required to get a business license in every city that I work for. So I had to go get I obviously don't have a physical presence in Milpitas. I'm located in El Dorado County near Sacramento, but I hold a City of Milpitas business license. And I also hold a business license in about 125 other cities throughout California because we work all over the state. And I can say very clearly firsthand, the outreach and proactive, I get emails from the City of Milpitas' Economic Development Department on a very regular basis. And your staff and your city crew there is one of the most useful, helpful, and proactive groups out there providing resources to local businesses. Personally, most of those things don't apply to me. I'm not running a restaurant in Milpitas. I'm not trying to get shipping and logistics taken care of locally during a pandemic, but your economic development staff has been excellent. So I get a lot of these emails, and I've been very impressed with how proactive the city has been in terms of providing local business support during 2020. Just the 2020 asterisk that hangs over all of this stuff. So, okay. Who's next? I don't see any new hands raised in my panelist chat sidebar, but if you're on screen, you can wave at me or holler at me. You can talk about a specific topic. All right, Allison, you're up.
Yeah, I did have one more comment again on the land use plan. I also did not get through all of the material. I apologize. So I plan to have it on my reading list now. But so I was looking at, I was remembering that there's been a lot in the news lately about the state, I believe they're calling them opportunity zones. They're asking cities to create in neighborhoods that would allow slightly higher densities to increase the housing stock, to help with the housing crisis, and also to better distribute housing throughout cities. It's supposed to help with desegregation, for example. And I know that the city of San Jose has been looking really closely at that. I am noticing that our land use map is showing most of the existing low density residential as continuing to be low density residential. We weren't planning to change that in any way. And I'm just wondering, given the state, mandating cities basically to look at their existing neighborhoods and see where they can increase housing densities. It also offers owners, property owners, an opportunity for greater investment in their property, to allow, for example, where there's single family homes, to allow them to subdivide, create a duplex or a triplex or something along those lines. And I don't know if the land use plan, the way we have been looking at it thus far, which was before the state had asked cities to do this, is going to allow the flexibility that we need in order to meet that new guideline from the state.
That's an excellent comment. I appreciate that. So the opportunity zones that you're talking about, they're not mandated by the state. It's one new available tool. So we have tools like specific plans. In the world of planning, there's a number of different planning tools and planning documents. And this is one additional tool that the state has made available to local cities, but they aren't mandating that they do. One of the most applicable state mandates, which has been in place for a while, but the rules are constantly changing, relate to the city's housing element, and more specifically, what's called the RHNA, the Regional Housing Needs Allocation. So the short version of that is every city and county in California is given an allocation of housing units that they need to accommodate, not actually construct, but they need to show through their land use plans and their zoning and their various regulations that apply to development that they aren't being an impediment to accommodating their fair share of housing. So it is true that when you look at the map, one of the more dominant colors you see is this light yellow, which is low density residential, which is a continuation of your current land use pattern. But what's very important to note is that two of the other more dominant colors you see are this kind of light purple, which is the Midtown Gateway specific plan, and also this kind of beigey color, which is the Milpitas Metro specific plan, formerly the TASP. The vast majority of your multifamily housing and your planning for new housing units in the future is going into the Metro specific plan area. This is the area largely surrounding the BART station. So we've all driven through it. We've all seen the 3 and 4 plus story apartment buildings that are going in there. There's been, Jessica, help me out here. 7,000 or 8,000 already entitled, and how many more in the pipeline? And so the vast majority, while your acreage has stayed light yellow in terms of low density residential, those focus specific plan areas are way out in front of what a number of other cities throughout the region are doing in terms of taking up the slack for your fair share of multifamily housing. So through those specific plans, which are also in the process of being updated right now, the city has taken very tangible and proactive steps to provide for a range of housing densities, housing types, and you're going to be in a very good position to meet your regional housing allocation numbers when you have to update your housing element in 2023. So the city's on a very good track for that.
And Ben, if I can jump in, thank you to the wonders of technology. Our economic development director, Alex, was able to, he sent me an email, so I just wanted to clarify the issue of opportunity zones. He let us know that Milpitas did not qualify for opportunity zones 2 years ago. We don't have a census tract that's aligned with the requirements. So just want you to know we're paying attention to these issues as well. We just couldn't qualify to be able to be designated as one. So just a heads up.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
If I might interject, I was going to mention this at the end of the meeting, but this might be a good chance. Next Tuesday, the Metro Plan consultants will be making another presentation to the council, and one of the items I'll be talking about is additional mixed-use development, housing development in the metro area. So if that's of particular interest, tune into the council meeting next Tuesday.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sorry, I have another housekeeping item. Just to let Rochelle know that the other phone number that had called in was actually Charlene Mai, who is one of our GPAC members. So I'm not sure.
I got it. She's already a panelist. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Thanks.
All right, fantastic. All right, who's next?
I think there was a question in the queue from Victor San Vicente on Parkland. It's in the chat down at the bottom.
Yeah, could you hear me?
Yes, we can.
There we go. We can.
Could you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
There we
Now,
go.
is there like a ratio of open space or parks to residents in the city? And don't you want to achieve, be one of the highest achievement in that area so that we have, that presents your quality of living. Your quality of living, or one of the criteria for quality of living, is how many parks you have per person, per population. So how do you stack up to the best of the cities in California when it comes to parks to population or open space to population? Where do we stand? Are we at the top 30% or the bottom 30% or middle 30%?
That's an excellent question. So we have on page, on the Parks, Rec, and Open Space Elements, page 1, policy PROS 1-3. It calls on the city to achieve and maintain a minimum overall citywide ratio of 5 acres of parkland for every 1,000 residents. And this applies to areas outside of your adopted specific plans and within those 2 key specific plan areas. So that's the Metro specific plan and the Gateway Main Street specific plan. Those documents will specify the parks ratios within their planning area boundaries. But that 5 acres per 1,000 is considered kind of the industry standard benchmark for excellence in planning.
Exactly.
It's an aggressive number to achieve. The city has done an excellent job in preserving parks and open space. You've got a number of resources up in your hillside areas. And what we've done through this general plan is make sure there is 0 loss of parkland and open space. We have not converted a single square foot of open space or parkland to any other type of use. So to the specifics of your question, if we're in the top 30% or the middle 30%, I don't have an audit of the neighboring jurisdictions handy in front of me, so I can't necessarily speak with certainty on the comparative ranking of where you are to some of your peers in terms of other cities. But the standard that's in your general plan is considered the gold standard benchmark for making sure you have adequate park and open space land based on your service population.
We haven't reduced that over the last, let's say, 20 years. Have we reduced or have we increased park per person? How are we doing over the last 20 or 30 years? Have we increased the parks per open space per population, or we have decreased open space per population?
I made.
Are we increasing it or are we decreasing it? And are we getting close to to what you call it, the threshold, or how are we doing? In other words,
my understanding is that in general, the city has been increasing it through a couple of steps and measures. One is the city has been very aggressive at protecting the existing parks and not allowing them to convert to urbanized uses. And secondarily, when new major development projects come in, those projects are either required to provide on-site parkland and open space or pay notable in lieu fees towards a fund that helps the city protect and secure additional parklands.
Mhm.
So, again, compared to the regional trends, the city has been very proactive in securing additional parkland. And as I mentioned earlier, the city is in the process right now of preparing an update to the Parks and Open Space Master Plan. And
Mhm.
that's going to provide much more nuanced and specific details in terms of various facilities, various financing options, and plans for future parkland procurement as the city looks to the future. So having done this in a number of
It'd be nice to know.
good job.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
One of the problems we'd had, and I had mentioned this in our other meetings years before, was the city had a way of calculating how much open space we had to the inch, and they would count median strips, for example, as open space, and to kind of boost that number for what it looked like in the city. I'm not sure that we do that anymore, but our open space and parks are different.
Yes, and in terms of our policy direction in the general plan and any of the calculations we did as part of this effort, we most certainly did not count landscape medians as parks and open space. We're talking specifically, because usually those are designated as right-of-way. I'm a planner, so I'm usually looking at land use maps. When we see right-of-way, which is medians and sidewalks and landscaping next to roadways, those do not count into the calculations towards parks and open space. So we're talking about, your creek corridors with trails that are designated permanent open space, or lands that are designated public facilities and have parks on them, or lands that are designated open space. So there's nothing in this general plan that allows for what I'll call cute math to try and artificially bolster the number of park acreage based on trying to claim credit for medians and things like that. All right. Who's next? Who else wanted to jump in here?
Hi, Ben. This is Lan Lan.
Hello, good to see you.
Good to see you. I don't really have a specific question, but I just want to thank your team and all the staff who have been working very, very hard on this General Plan 2040. I really like the presentation of the plan. I just want to give you a shout out on that, because it's very well laid out and easy to review. And I hope that in the future, when the city approve and everything is all set to go, we will print it out. Not just have the online version only, but print it out so that any citizen, any resident in our city want to have a copy, they would be able to have it, because I know right now everything is online and people just don't print the material at all. Will that be in the plan at all?
Absolutely, and I appreciate that comment. So a couple of things I can say to that. Obviously, again, the 2020 asterisk, COVID throws a wrinkle in everything, but
Right.
we will be, as we'll talk later tonight's meeting, we'll talk about next steps. So while this document now is available on the general plan website, we've provided it to the city council members. We have not formally sent it out for public review. Members of the public can find it, they can access it, but we haven't started the public review period yet. And following our joint session with the council and the planning commission at the end of September, we'll be starting that formal public review and comment period. And we will print a number of copies, hard copies, printed, bound, nice looking, ready to go general plan. And those will be made available at various locations as appropriate, things like the library and the senior center and city hall. And then once the document is adopted, so after public review, when the council ultimately adopts it with any final changes, we'll also print another large number of copies. So making sure that paper, hold in your hand versions of this are available is absolutely part of the plan.
And lastly, when I look at the implementation space, section, you have short-term, long-term, and all of that, over maybe 20 years. So when we get to that stage, that means most of the residents will not be able to have any more comment or changes or contribution or anything at all. That
Well,
will be too late, right?
once it's adopted, that'll be generally the final form of the document. So there are definitely provisions in state law for amending the general plan from time to time. The city is allowed to make up to 4 amendments per
Four
year.
times per year, yeah.
Yes, but the intention of this is this group put in a tremendous amount of effort to get the general plan to a very good spot. We will then send it to the Planning Commission and City Council for their input. We will then take it out for a public review and comment period. And all of the feedback we're getting from the public, the Planning Commission, the Council, the document is not done yet. It's still in draft form. There's still opportunities to make changes. Once the Council adopts it, hopefully at the end of 2020, then that will be your adopted general plan. So if the council needs to change some direction from year to year, you have up to 4 amendments per year. And typically what happens is approximately every 10 to 15 years, cities embark on a new general plan update. So they have a 20-year shelf life, and typically every 10 to 15 years is a good time to go revisit it and do either a full update or a targeted update.
Yeah.
So hopefully I answered.
Right. Thank you, Ben. The reason why I asked that question, because given all of the environmental issue that we're facing right now with the fire and with a lot of, air quality that's really poor right now and all of that. So I'm just, throw out a question for the future, because everything is unknown right now. What if we have more fire? What if we have the worst weather? What if there are more population and all that stuff? So then I'm glad that the city council will have a chance to look at it as well. And that we have 4 times per year to really revisit any issue that we already approved. Now, right?
Absolutely. And I feel, having done this for, almost 20 years as a professional, the only constant in this world is change. And just constantly occurring. And again, I keep saying 2020. I mean, if you want to talk about a year of change, we're in it now. None of us have seen anything like this. I still feel confident that you have a forward-looking plan that is as responsive as possible to various issues. And if this year has taught us anything, it's that we don't know what's coming next year, but there are tools in place that allow the city to make adjustments as needed. And
excellent.
Are you raising your hand, Oscar?
Thank you.
Yes, Ben. Listening to Ben and with the recent news, for example, what happened in the few years ago with some of the fires developments, what it was found out was that the vast majority of people who suffer the consequences of calamities, et cetera, were the immigrant population and residents, that they didn't got the support, the messages, the services, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if this is the right place or not with the general plan, in which we need to be sure that when we need to understand and realize the dynamics of Milpitas, that composed from a huge variety of immigrants, especially now new immigrants and the ones who has been before. That includes the socioeconomic, et cetera, and many times we do provide services. We have good ideas, intentions, but the bottleneck, or what it really is very thin, is the communication, how this is spread out, how we can make it as part of city policy or whatever, to be sure that all what we do in any area, it's aimed to all our residents and all our citizens within the city of Milpitas. So let's say, Lord forbids, there's a calamity or something, how those services are going to get it to all of our residents, and not just because language barrier or whatever to a limited number. I don't know if this is the right place or not, or it is something that we can add it or include it.
No, and I greatly appreciate that comment, Oscar, because obviously, again, with 2020, social justice, environmental justice, disadvantaged communities, racial disparities, that's been, it's been an issue for decades, but it's certainly simmered to the forefront this year. So what we've included in your general plan is a community health and wellness element, which speaks to many of the things that you're talking about right now. And some of the recent changes to state planning law require cities now to address the topic that they define as environmental justice. And it's not just the environment, it also talks about social justice. There's this long-standing ugly history in California where minority and low-income communities are exposed to higher pollution concentrations. They typically have less equitable access to local government. And so we've included in the community health and wellness element policies and actions very specifically targeted to what you're speaking to right now. We're talking about multilingual outreach. We're making sure that city programs and policies ensure the promotion of equal access and opportunity, regardless of background, socioeconomic conditions. I'm looking over at my screen reading this right now. And so, yes, the general plan provides the policy direction to the city, but the devil's in the details. And so this is where the implementation programs are going to really come into play, and city staff will need to start to carry these out over time. One thing I can tell you from a personal level is I've worked with dozens, if not hundreds, of planning directors and planning managers throughout the state of California over the last 20 years. And Jessica is one of the most passionate, proactive community health and wellness advocates I have ever had the pleasure of working with. We've written a number of these health and wellness elements. We submitted them to Jessica and she said, all right, let me get started. And she dug into this thing, and it's one of the better ones we've ever had come out of our shop. And that's really just because Jessica is so passionate and knowledgeable about these topics. So I would strongly encourage you, it's a 270-page document. Check out the community health and wellness element, because I think you're going to see a lot of policies and actions that speak to exactly the points you were raising right now. And I think the city is really out in the front of this. You have a very diverse council. Multiculturalism is a key component of the city's fabric and identity. And we've really tried to up our game in this general plan to reflect that. So yeah, check out the community health and wellness element. I think it's going to speak to a lot of the points you just raised. All right, let's see here. Cheryl, do I see a digital hand from you? All right, there we go.
Yes, and on the section UCS, the utilities and community section, section 8C, it does talk about assuring that developers pay their impact fee, but they would have to pay that regardless. And I provided a letter to Steve, city manager, as well as the former city manager, and in speaking with the current city manager. And I also brought it up the last time GPAC met over in the senior center. And I was assured that language would be included in the general plan, which would require a facility developer to come to the school district to discuss a resolution of impact, not on overcrowding, because we know that issue is not one that can be discussed. However, on the three issues of noise mitigation, traffic, and also providing safe passage to students. So I don't see language in there that would require a developer to seek consult with the superintendent or a school representative on mitigation in addition to the impact fees. So that's missing.
Thank you. What I'm going to do, I did receive a copy of that letter, so let me, I don't want to try and tap dance around it. Let me review the letter. let me review the various components in the general plan. I think, we've definitely, in the circulation element, we've got a lot of discussion on safe routes to school. We've got discussion of noise, but I don't know if they're all bundled up, tied to consultation with the superintendent on school-related issues. So as we go to council, let me represent that letter. Let me figure out if we've sort of done a scattershot job of achieving most of that. And I'll do an honest assessment of our own work and say, yeah, we did or did not hit all of those points. And if we've fallen short, I'll come to the council with suggestions that would meet the recommendations contained in your letter and allow the council to provide us with direction on how we should move forward on that topic. Would that be satisfactory?
Yes, as long as there's key words in there, which requires the developer to come have a talk with the school district before the city council awards its permits to begin.
I'm taking notes. Yes.
And Cheryl, just to briefly jump in, that is also, that is what our staff currently does. When we're working on any new development project, that is one of the first things that the planner lets the applicant know, is that they need to be negotiating directly with the school district with respect to those items. So we're very committed to making sure that there's that alignment and that communication. But it's a wonderful suggestion. I completely support the idea of codifying it within the general plan. So thank you for your comments again, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, and I appreciate the work of the staff too. I can say that they have kept me apprised of new developments that are coming down the pipe. So thank you.
And
with that, I need to run to my next meeting.
Well, before you go, if I could say one last thing while we're doing the terms of appreciation. As the parent of 2 young school-age children in kindergarten and 2nd grade right now, I would just like to acknowledge and appreciate the challenges you are facing right now in our crazy 2020 year in terms of getting kids educated, keeping it equitable, keeping parents sane. I see a lot of knowing smiles from people throughout the room. If you're parents right now, it's anyway, we've been having a lot of appreciation for our teachers and our administrators. So thank you for that. You guys are dealing with this in ways that the rest of us can't fathom.
Thank you. I'll pass it along to the team. And it really is a team. It's about parents are truly authentically engaged as our partners. So that's a great opportunity in challenging times.
Yes, it is.
All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
You too. All right, let me see here. I lost my pop-out box. Oscar, I see your hand still up on digitally, but I have a feeling that's a holdover. Anybody else have their hand up right now to jump into this conversation? All right, well, I'm getting the sense, I don't want to put words in people's mouth, but I'm getting the sense that this document is reflective of the GPAC's overall input and provides a roadmap that is appropriate for Milpitas. We've definitely had a number of specific comments. William and I are here taking detailed notes. We're going to be putting this feedback into a staff memo or a staff report that will go to the City Council and Planning Commission at the end of this month, so that all of these issues that have been raised are going to be revisited by the City Council, and they'll be providing us with direction. And I don't want to rush this along, and I do not want to, preclude anybody from chiming in, but is there anybody else who has specific comments on the general plan in terms of things you disagree with, things you thought were omitted? Before we move on to the next segments of our meeting this evening in terms of public comment, I just want to make sure the GPAC's really had an opportunity to say what's on their mind.
And Ben, if I can also just jump in really quickly, and I want to assure the GPAC and also the public that's listening in and participating that once we actually take this to the City Council for that joint meeting, there are opportunities for you to submit comments. There are opportunities for you now through the rest of this review period. If anything comes up, and I completely understand, 270 pages is a lot of material to read. And we wanted to give you as much time as possible, but we also wanted to make sure that we were connecting with you early on to just invite you to get into this document and to read it through and make sure that you're comfortable with it. So please, you're not under any pressure to give us comments now. Take a look at everything, and any subsequent discussion you want to have, please reach out. Let us know. We're here to hear your comments, to respond to you if you have questions. So thank you.
I am disappointed that we are not able to obtain a hard copy for the GPAC members. It's not possible for me to print it at home, and it's unwieldy to try to get through the whole thing on the computer and make comments. I like to be able to write on things. I'm old school. What can I say?
I have to agree with you on that, Alison. I prefer to have something I can flip back and forth to, especially when we're having a meeting like this and my computer is being used to communicate, and I can't refer to places in the document that you want to talk about. So I think that Ben's got an advantage to me over there. I mean, you've got the document and you've got a communication device. I have to flip either one or the other.
I completely understand. This is my office. I got a big screen over here. I don't print paper anymore, but I'm looking at two screens right now. So that's what I'm flipping back and forth. I hear you guys. So we'll fix that. So let me coordinate with Jessica and Ned, and we'll work on, I think I saw Ned in the comments that City Hall's closed. So there's not really opportunities, but let's do an email offline. And for those of you that really need to get your hands on paper, we'll make it happen. I got printing shops here. We've got mail and FedEx. You guys have been busting your booties here to make this a great plan, and to have frustration at the end because you don't have paper to hold. We won't let that be a stumbling block. So if you guys need hard copies, we'll make it happen from our end.
I do appreciate the desire to be green, but I think for the members of the committee, it's important for us to be able to interface with the material in a more doable way. I don't know, for me, it's...
Well, Allison, I just want to jump in and just note for the record that we haven't been printing materials for the GPAC for any of our previous meetings, with the exception of one of our GPAC members who has specifically requested it. So that's not our practice. That hasn't been our practice. And unfortunately with COVID, it's just very difficult for us to be able to accommodate it. So I appreciate that Ben's willing to work with you. And for those that absolutely need it, that's fine. But that really is our commitment to try and stay green. And I apologize that you're having trouble with the electronic version. We all have, challenges with technology. But one suggestion too, for the rest of the GPAC membership, if you want to pull up the electronic version, you can always reduce your screen from the discussion that we're having and put it up on half of your screen. That's what I do. I split my screen, and I have a very small laptop so that I can refer back and forth. So hopefully that keeps it a little bit more nimble. But hopefully in the future, Ben can help you with your request for a paper copy.
Thankfully, we have some money left in our contingency fund. So Ben, if you need to do that printing, we can use a portion of that contingency. And we appreciate that with the postage as well. Just one of the circumstances that we're under with COVID-19 is being apart. So I think you're better set up to do that over in your office.
For better or worse, I'm in the business of writing documents, so I get the bulk discount at FedEx. So we'll make it happen.
One thing that I might ask the GPAC members: are you satisfied? There aren't a lot of illustrations in the document. The cover is blue, but if we printed that in black and white, it would be a little bit of cost savings there. Do you mind if it's in black and white? Or we'll even do gray?
I guess the exception would be the
land use map.
With the color coded land use map, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Ben, I just wanted to note that Victor has a question, and it was in the chat, but maybe Victor, would you mind speaking up and letting us know what your question is?
Yeah. My question is, could everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. This was brought up at one time. We have a very good education system here in Milpitas, maybe one of the best in California. And this education system produces high level training of engineers, etc. And we found out to reduce traffic, a lot of engineers have to travel across 237 every day and spend hours traveling to Sunnyvale and Mountain View and Cupertino, etc. to get a job. One of the areas we are feeling in is Class A office space, we have, so we do two things. We get jobs for high paid people who are well educated, which Milpitas does have a highly educated community. And also at the same time, we reduced on the traffic because they could work right here in Milpitas. And so I think that was a high priority item from what I heard at one time. Is this still a high priority item?
Absolutely. And so very specifically to that point, the area of the city that's essentially the southwestern quadrant, so the industrial parks that are south of 237 and west of 880. What we've done, they're currently designated industrial park, which has a floor area ratio that's notably lower than what most Class A office is seeking. So even though you have tech campuses out there, they aren't the higher scale. So we've developed the new land use designation of Business Park Research and Development, which has a floor area ratio of 2.5. And so that is almost 5 times higher, the floor area ratio of what's currently allowed down in that area. And the idea is to attract these high wage employers to build high-tech campus office parks there, because we're now allowing the density to make those feasible from an economic standpoint. The other thing we've done is we've identified areas for a innovation district overlay. So areas to the kind of southeast of the Great Mall, down along where Landis and Montague run, down south of your industrial manufacturing area. We've identified innovation district overlays, which is going to allow for some kind of creative office environments that can provide some tax incentive opportunities. We've been working closely with Alex in the economic development department. So yeah, the point that you're raising about trying to attract and retain more high-tech local jobs, particularly near the BART station, where not only Milpitas residents can work there, but you can import workers from outside of the community without contributing to local traffic, because jobs are within walking distance of the BART station. Yeah, it's really been a cornerstone of our land use map and the economic development strategy. So I'm glad you raised that point, and I feel very confident that the general plan has very specifically addressed exactly that.
Okay.
And Ben, if I can just add to Victor, this is yet another issue that we have been talking very closely with the economic development director about. He's obviously, our biggest champion to make sure that we've got all of the different types of office space to accommodate the variety of, of commercial users and office needs that we have throughout the city. And, I don't, again, without wanting to linger too long on the effects of the pandemic, we are seeing shifting patterns in terms of where offices are, where employers are going and where they're choosing to site their offices. And Milpitas is actually in a really great position in the future to start to see some of that development come into the city. And that being said, during the pandemic, we've seen shifting and rapidly changing kind of models for how people work. And I think that that's going to have a long-term impact on the real estate decisions that our employers have, and the types of teleworking opportunities and for being able to work virtually. So not to say that that's going to be an immediate change and we're going to see a paradigm shift, but it is going to be interesting to see this over the next 5 years. How does this change that environment, not only for commercial and office space, but for retail too?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Are there any other comments or points of input from the GPAC before we move on to our public comment stage? All right. I am not seeing anybody. I'm double checking to make sure I didn't miss anything here in my digital sidebar, but I am not seeing anything. So if the group is comfortable, we're going to move on to public comments. Looking for someone to tell me otherwise, but all right, very good.
Let's do it. And we can ask Liz, have we received any comments?
We have not received any comments this evening.
All right. Is that our only mechanism or step we need to take? Or is there anyone out there I can't see who's in the queue trying to get in and say something?
I think we've gotten everybody. And again, for anybody that may be listening in or watching, please join us for the September 29th joint meeting between the Planning Commission and City Council, where Ben is going to be talking about this again. And then I think Ben's going to launch into next steps. But if you do have any comments, again, my information is on the general plan website. I'm also on the planning webpage. Please reach out to me and let me know how I can help you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So yeah, this is my final slide. Hopefully everybody can see the screen. So we obviously have our GPAC meeting here tonight. We're going to write up detailed notes from this, and we'll provide that to the City Council so that they understand what the GPAC's input and discussion was this evening. We are slated for September 29th for a joint Planning Commission City Council study session. So this will be kind of a similar format as this evening. We'll be walking the Planning Commission and City Council through the document, answering their questions, getting any of their feedback and direction. Whatever direction they give us, what we're going to be recommending is that they have us move forward with completion of the draft EIR, which is well underway. We have it close to done. It's a beast of a report, but we're looking to get that out hopefully in early October. And coinciding with that, hopefully the months of October and November, we are officially out for public review and comment on both the draft general plan and the draft EIR. And we'll be accommodating additional public workshops during that time frame, so members of the public can learn about the plan, provide input, we'll answer questions, we'll take feedback. And then at the end of that, it'll be a minimum of a 6-week public review and comment period. And when that concludes, most likely in late November, we'll then move forward into adoption hearings with the Planning Commission and the City Council. So we're going to do our best to try and have that happen by the end of 2020. It's a tight schedule. I know it still seems several months out, but you know, part of me hopes we meet the schedule, and part of me hopes 2020 is over as fast as possible. So I'm somewhere torn in the middle on that. But that's our game plan in terms of moving forward. So if anybody has any questions about that, I'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I would like to conclude by just commending this group. I know I get the privilege of doing this professionally. I work in cities all over California, from San Diego County up through Shasta County. You guys have been fantastic to work with. I think you should be very proud of the general plan that your effort has produced. I know it's a big document. I hope you all get a chance to start looking through it over the next couple of weeks. I would encourage you to sign in to the Planning Commission City Council joint study session at the end of September, so you can hear some of the feedback we get from your city leadership. And for those of you who really need to get your hands on hard copies, go ahead and email me and we'll make it happen. So you can route emails to Jessica, or you all should have my email address. You know how to find me, and we'll make it happen. We'll get copies in your hand, even though City Hall's closed. We'll find a way. So,
and Ben, I'd like to jump in here at the end and just congratulate everyone for enduring this as long as you have. When we began this process, Barack Obama was the president.
There's some context right there.
And I just wanted to thank everybody again. Boy, you know, and by November we may see another new president. So let's keep our fingers crossed. But thank you all for your years of commitment and attendance, participation, and really thoughtful review and comments as we've gone through this process. It has been a privilege for me to be able to work with you and to serve as your planning manager as we move this plan through. I'm deeply grateful for all of the work that you've done. So thank you so much. And I hope that we'll hear from you again and that you'll be able to participate in the joint meeting. You're welcome to submit comments then too if you need to. So thank you again.
Thanks to all the staff and to Ben's team for all the hard work that you've put into this. It's been a huge undertaking, and I'm sure many, many, many long hours. I appreciate all that you've done.
Well, thank you for that. It's what we do, and it's been a pleasure. We're not done yet, but I can see that finish line. So anyway, good work to this group.
Jessica, what time is the meeting on the 29th?
I believe it's at 6 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken, but we will we'll post that information, and I'll also send out an email to the listserv and let you know and give you specific information so that you can log on. So I'll send that out. We usually post that information about a week prior. So as soon as I get it, I'll send it out to you.
And just a word for you, Ben and Jessica. I know you have been almost from the beginning with all of us. It was really very important, the fact that you have always open to listen to our comments and our suggestions, and to be sure that is a full understanding of our opinions and what we were looking forward. So thank you, because sometimes you are part of a meeting in which your voices might be heard, but you see that it's going in no direction. But that's not the case with this GPAC.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, guys. Well, I think that's a wrap. So thank you very much. I would say drive home safe, but I think we're probably all home already. So again, 2020. So
Don't trip walking to the other room of your house.
exactly.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great
Thank
night.
you all so much. Thank you, Jessica. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.